From myofibrils to filaments to the sarcomere, we uncover the basic unit of muscle contraction. Today, we're diving head-first into the fascinating micro-world of the sarcomere, the tiny powerhouse that makes every single move your body makes possible. Components of the sarcomere. First up, the M-line. Think of it as the anchor for thick myosin filaments. It sits right in the middle, that's where the M comes from, and helps keep those thick filaments stable and aligned. Next is the A band. These are the dark bands you see under a microscope. The A stands for anisotropic, but an easier way to remember is, it contains all filament types. Both thick myosin and thin actin filaments overlap here, which is why it looks darker. Quote. Now let's meet their counterparts. The Z line is like the boundary marker of the sarcomere. It holds the thin actin filaments in place, and each sarcomere stretches from one Z line to the next. Then we have the I band, the light-colored bands. The I stands for isotropic, and it's light because it contains only thin actin filaments. No overlap with thick filaments here. Then we have H zone, a lighter region that sits on both sides of the M line. Unlike the A band, the H zone contains only thick myosin filaments, so no thin filaments overlap here. When muscles contract, this zone actually gets smaller. Now all of the component is together. A myofibril is the long, cylindrical structure inside muscle cells. It's surrounded by a network called the sarcoplasmic reticulum, which helps control muscle contraction. And what makes up a myofibril? You guessed it, sarcomeres. Each myofibril is a chain of sarcomeres connected from Z line to Z line. This slide shows how all the parts we just discussed, the bands, zones, and lines, fit into one complete sarcomere unit. To make remembering all these parts easier, we've got a fun mnemonic which is, zebra in Africa have muscle. Let's break it down. Zebra is Z line, zaps the boundaries between sarcomeres. In his I band, is only thin filaments. Africa is a band. All filaments overlap. Thick plus thin. Have his H zone, has only thick filaments. Muscle is M line, middle line, holds thick filaments. This little phrase should help you keep everything straight. Now we are looking at two primary types of filaments. On the top, we have the actin filament, often called the thin filament. Below it is the myosin filament, or the thick filament. Now, let's focus on the thick filament, which is composed of myosin filaments and myosin heads. If we look at diagram, a single myosin molecule consists of a tail and two heads. These heads are very important because they contain 1. An actin binding site, which allows the head to form cross bridges with the actin. 2. An ATPase site, which breaks down ATP to release the energy needed for movement. You also can see how two molecules bind at their tail ends, creating a bare zone in the middle where there are no heads. Finally, it also shows a portion of the thick filament, where many myosin heads are grouped together to form the cross bridges that will eventually pull on the thin filament. Finally, we have the thin filament, which is composed of three major proteins: actin, tropomyosin, and the troponin complex. Next, we will briefly explain how muscles contract and relax using the sliding filament theory. In a fully relaxed muscle, the distance between the actin filaments in the H zone is large. This is because there is no overlap at the center of the sarcomere yet. As the muscle moves into a partially contracted state, the actin filaments move inward toward the center. You will notice three things shortening: the H zone, the I band, and the overall sarcomere. However, take note that the A band, which represents the length of the thick myosin filaments, always remains constant. In a state of full contraction, the actin filaments overlap so much that the H zone disappears. The Z lines are pulled closer together, which is what we physically feel as a shortening muscle. We have already prepared some mnemonics for you guys, so I hope you guys can understand them. Please correct my grammar.